Recently on Woodworking with Wes, I did a video where I asked you, what would you like to see me build? Well, today we're going to do one of those requests. The request we had was to build an L fence for our table saw. This is an L fence. It's all set up. But before we get started using it, I'm going to show you how to build it, how it works, and then we're going to make a cut on it and show you what it does. Right now we have our L fence clamped to the saw fence of our table saw. Let's go ahead and take it off, and then I'm going to show you how this all goes together and how to make each piece. This is a two-piece jig, and I'm going to show you how to make each piece. Here's both halves hooked together. Here's the part that I had clamped to my fence. Let's go ahead and take it apart. We have two wing nuts here that hold the two pieces together. And we have a slotted hole for adjustment. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But let's go ahead and take this completely apart and start with the first piece. Let's set that off to the side. This is the part that clamps to our fence. Now I build it in a way that allows me to put a clamp across the top of my fence and clamp it down good and solid. These bolts that I've put in here come through so that I can tie the wing nuts to the other piece. I put it together in such a way that this is nice and square to my table. When I get it all clamped to my fence, this is nice and square to my table. I put my bolts in here and I hot glue them in so that they don't move around on me. And I have plenty of support for my piece so that it's good and strong. This is 10 inches high. It's only 23 inches long. My return piece that I clamped to my fence is 2.5 inches high, and my space in here is 2 inches, all of this being 23 inches long. So it gives me a good, strong support for my other piece. The working portion of our L clamp is built basically the same way. We have a right angle here. I have some corner blocks in here to hold it good and square, 90 degrees. My piece on the back is 10 inches high to match the 10 inches high on my other piece. It's 34 inches long though, and I'll show you the reason that I have that longer than the piece that clamps to the fence in just a minute. This piece down here is the actual fence that we work off of. So this is kind of the business end of our L fence. And this piece is 6 inches wide and the length of my 34 inches. My little corner pieces that I did here, I just cut some 5 by 5 squares and 45'd them down the middle and nailed them in so that it held it at a good right angle. My slots that I cut in here, my bolts are 3/8 of an inch, but my slot I cut 1/2 inch so that it can slide up and down real easy when I get ready to work that. And then let's slide these two pieces together. Like that. You can see how the lines up. The large washer gives me plenty of clamping space with my wing nut. I just went to my local hardware store and I bought my nuts and my bolt and my wing nut and my washer. Okay. Now, that gives me the ability to, let's loosen this up a little bit, that gives me the ability to slide this up and down as I need to. And I'll show you how we set it up here to make our L fence really help us on our table saw. The first thing we do to get it set up ready to go is we clamp our fence to our table saw fence. I just use some F clamps here and clamp it down good and solid, front and back. Okay, just like that. And we can slide it across here. Now, let's talk about what it does. One of the things that this does, and I'm going to show you basically first how to set it up. This is a board that just came from my wood supplier. It has a raw mill edge, it has a big knot here on the end I don't want to have. So if I wanted to cut this off, I want a good straight line cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp, or I'm going to use, actually for this demonstration, I'm just going to nail it on here. But I'm going to put a straight edge. This is a good straight board. I'm going to put a straight edge on here that lines up with where I would like to make the cut. Let me go ahead and nail this on. Now, I could put this on with double-sided tape. I could even use some hot glue and stick it on. Just for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to nail it on. And I'm even going to do it at a little bit of an angle. I'm just going to give it a nail on each end. I want to be able to cut down here on my saw blade. First thing we're going to do is I have to set the height of my fence to run against my guide board and over the top of the board that I want to cut. I have a little spacer stick here that I'm going to lay on top. This is 3/8 of an inch. I want my L-fence edge here that we're going to be working on, I want it to be higher than this board because I don't want it to bind or anything like that. So what I do when I do it, this is the way I do it. I set my saw fence down on my little spacer stick there, and I tighten down my wing nuts. Then I take this out, make sure that I've got plenty of space underneath here. Okay, the next thing I do is I want to crank up my saw blade to be high enough to go through the wood that I'm cutting, but only just a little bit because I don't want it to cut into my L-fence piece. So that's right where I need to be, right there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our fence here to the outside of our blade right there. So we're just going to use our little square and we're going to move our fence up to line it up with the outside of our saw blade. So we want to make sure that we have our L-fence, the fence part. This is our guide fence, our fence part right here. We want to make sure that we've got that lined up with the blade. And there we are right there. Okay, so now we're going to turn around our board here. And what we're going to do is we're going to slide this board through our saw with this being our guide fence, rides along here, and our saw will be cutting through our board down here. Let's go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what that looks like when we get done. My saw has cut right down the edge of my guide piece, and my cutoff piece is underneath. Now, one of the things you want to make sure, whatever you cut off can't be too wide to fit to get underneath our deal. You don't want any binding underneath there. You want to make sure that the piece that you cut off is loose underneath your L-fence horizontal piece. And I also have a little push stick here, and I can get in here and I can push out my piece that is underneath there so that I keep it clean. And you can see, here's the piece we just cut off. Nice, smooth, clean cut. This also works really good for making angle cuts on sheet goods. Again, we take our guide piece. You can see I have a line drawn here. All we do is line up our guide piece with the line that we have drawn on our panel. Now again, like I say, for this demonstration, I'm just going to nail this on. But if I was doing this for a real project, I would use double stick tape for this so that I wouldn't ruin my melamine. Now we have a guide piece ready to go through our saw just like we did before, and you can see how that guide piece would run along there and it would make the cut right along our piece. Let's go ahead and do that and show you. And we're going to use our push stick to get our material out from behind the saw blade again, just like we did. And I'm just going to pop this off. And you can see our angle cut right there worked really well with our little guide piece. This is a great way to make angle cuts, especially if your angle cut is one at a time. You only just need one cut rather than make some other kind of a jig. You can make your angle cut here with your L fence, and it works really good. Here's another one of those pieces that you need in your shop. You may not even know you need it, but once you use it, you'll like it. And we'll do something else that you'll like next time on Woodworking with Wes.